What's up, people of the Capital Wasteland? How you guys doing at the start of 2025? We've got a heck of a run to lead the new year off with, and it stems from an idea I got a few months back. I do want to try this, but I wanted to give Amata a Fallout 3 run to lead up to an adventure in the Mojave Wasteland, and I finally settled on one. But before we go into those details, let's get the usual out of the way, starting with Special. Now, this is her stat allocation in Fallout 3. Fallout Shelters is a little different, but since this is Fallout 3, we're going with this one. 5's clear across the board. I figure I'll use the Shelter one for our FNV Amata run, but I certainly don't mind these. 5 and everything isn't great, but it could be a lot worse. And hey, at least we'll have immediate access to Educated and Comprehension. Plus, if I want something like Silent Running, I can always hunt down the Agility bobblehead at Greener Pastures Disposal Site. Next up are our tagged skills. If you're new here, just know that here in my Fallout 3 challenge videos, I tracked on the bobbleheads pertaining to our tagged skills. Viewers voted almost unanimously in favor of this, and I really enjoy adding those segments to our runs. Science is super easy to get, and I usually get that anyway, but the idea of Amata visiting another vault makes this a little more interesting for me. I'll take a good 20 minutes to find Rockopolis like I always do, because I just suck at finding that place. And the National Guard Depot is no stranger to the channel, because many of the characters we've run that have small guns as our tag skill. For FNB characters like Boone and Raoul, they have guns, because guns is combined. So I'll go with small guns in that case, because it makes a lot more sense for those characters. But there's plenty of Fallout 3 characters who have gone there too. On the topic of guns, here's Amata's inventory. We're as bare bones as it gets this run, but because of a little house rule of mine, where we're allowed to use any variant of weapons or parle available to us, we can get our hands on a silenced 10mm and make great use of that. It's the equivalent of buying a silencer mod in FNV, and I allow in-game weapon mods in my New Vegas runs. But I tell you right now, I was not expecting my house rule to play this much of a role in this challenge as it did. And because of that, I technically can use the Armored Vault 101 jumpsuit that you get from Moira Brown, but I don't want to at this moment. And you know what, I'll give you a minor spoiler courtesy of the new year. I never actually end up using the armored jumpsuit, despite being tempted to upgrade at a couple of intervals throughout the course of the run. But don't worry, we do get ourselves a bit of an upgrade, and it might not be what you're expecting. But yeah, Vault 101 jumpsuit makes it super squishy, and the 10mm, whether it's a standard one or the silencer, is very weak, so we're in for a rough time. We're going to be going through ammo like coffee paper. But it should be fun, because Amata's adventure in the Capital Wasteland is one I'm excited to tell. And with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and set the scene. In our run's timeline, the events of Escape play out as they normally would up until the very end. And at the start, the Lone Wanderer tells Amata to keep the 10mm in case she needs it. And that's a good thing too, because that's how we have access to it. But in-game, it's also good because she's being interrogated by her father and Officer Mack, and just like how it can play out if we choose to let Amata keep the gun and handle the situation herself, she does shoot down Officer Mack in self-defense. But as she runs out of the room, the Lone Wanderer naively tries to defuse the situation. Overseer Almodovar sees an opening and manages to trick they, who would normally be the protagonist, into disarming, only to turn the tables on him, call security, and have him put down. In this timeline, the Lone Wanderer is indeed male, his father's son right up to the bitter end, and there's a small change in the relationship of the Lone Wanderer and Amata. Of course, they're lifelong friends, but there was something a little deeper. Not long before James up and left Vault 101 without telling a soul sans Jonas, the Lone Wanderer and Amata decided to take their relationship from friendship to something more. And it's this change that causes Amata, having helped her beloved up to this point, to change course in this timeline. Having heard the gunshot that kills her partner, Amata, her entire world turned upside down, opens the vault as she was planning to do so for the Lone Wanderer, and leaves herself. The only reason I made that change is because I think she would need something a bit more drastic to make the jump to going to the outside like that. She would later regret this decision, having just wanted to get away from it all at the time. But now that she's outside, there's no turning back now. She heard that vault seal shut behind her upon entering the wasteland, so much like James did to the Lone Wanderer, Amata left her father behind in Vault 101, though the context is obviously much different. Amata is also extremely angry with James. She blames him for her lover's death, and certainly wants to give him a piece of her mind, but she wouldn't even know where to start looking for a man who is apparently way more resourceful and cunning, her thoughts not mine, than he initially let on. What reason would he have to open the vault and leave 101? Did he think about the safety and well-being of his son, knowing that her father harbors barely restrained loathing for father and son alike? And what of Vault 101's security force? Surely the Overseer is going to be none too happy to learn that not only did his daughter leave the vault, but the door was sealed shut behind her. Time will tell, but for now it's time to get somewhere safe, and this Megaton, though dilapidated at best, is a far cry better than being out in the open. And it really looks like she showed up not a moment too soon either, as, well, this Mr. Burt guy wants her to blow up the bomb for some reason, promising some paltry sum of caps, and that's something that she just can't fathom, so obviously she reports that to the sheriff, who was quite respectful and kind to her upon greeting her upon her first entering Megaton. Yes, say that 3 times fast, I dare you. And still having come to terms with the fact that she shot Officer Mack, well, she has to pull the trigger again, although this time I think she would be a lot less, scared to do so. The realization of taking 2 lives in one day is gonna be a lot for our protagonist to come to terms with, but, well, she's gonna learn the hard way that sometimes you have to take measures like that to survive out here in the wasteland, and not only that, but, well, she prevented Burke from finding some other like-minded evil maniac from maybe setting off the bomb, but she will have to defuse that a bit later on, so what time better than the present than to learn the fine art of explosives? And to get any information at all, Amata has to do Colin Moriarty's little errand here. Amata explains to Silver what's up, and for some bottle caps, does agree to tell Colin that Silver is pretty much nowhere to be found, that she was taken care of. The take care of part was Silver's idea this time around. Moriarty does buy it and does part with information pertaining to James's location, but Amata's not going to follow that right away because apparently DC is very dangerous, according to Sims, as well as everybody else in Megaton. So let's start things off by going after one of our 3 required bobbleheads this time around. Learning of a vault not too far from her own, Amata thinks to come in here and maybe take shelter or appeal for help, and, well, judging by how this place looks, it's not going to go the way she thinks it is. Still, anything to get away from Moriarty and Megaton for the moment, just feeling so bad about what she had to do to obtain that information. And I'll tell you what, Vault 106 was very interesting this time around. I have never had the insane survivors just straight up flee from me. They're always trying to attack me. Sometimes they'll gang up, but like, this happens multiple times throughout the course of our stay here at Vault 106. I mean, I don't mind it because it makes the fights a little bit easier for me. And the insane survivors are just what we need to be fighting to get Amata some early experience points. And the thing is, once we start increasing our own repair skill, we can actually use the jumpsuits of Vault 106 to repair our Vault 101 jumpsuit. That's something I really enjoyed about this run too, is that I didn't have to console command in any inventory. All I had to do was console command in our special to get everything at 5. And we'll go ahead and cut straight to the room with the science bobblehead because the insane survivors just like to run away from us. Case in point here as we lure this dude with this real stylish mohawk out. Turns out he's also a fan of trying to run away to fight another day, but that's not gonna fly with us. Once he goes down, it's free pickings, and there's more of Vault 106 we could explore, but since we're here only for the science bobblehead, we can just go ahead and leave, and besides, I think our protagonist wants to get out of here. One thing in Megaton I think Amata would be very interested in is helping out Moira Brown with her Wasteland Survival Guide, and I'm going to show you a little trick I like to do here, is that if you ever need to find mole rats, go to Robco facility. It's real close to Tenpenny Tower. You can bring your repellent stick here, which we are allowed to use for the purposes of clearing this quest only. But not only can you get all 10 of your mole rats real easy here, when you clean the place out and have an adequate science that's 50 minimum, or higher, you can come back here and get the best reward from Moira Brown without having to clear out all the critters here, because you'd have done that already. Now, I do switch to our 10mm to dispose of the rad roaches. I'm sure you guys wouldn't really care because, I mean, they're rad roaches. I think the weakest enemy in the game, if not definitely top 3, but sticking to the rules of the challenge, can only kill 10 mole rats with this repellent stick. After that, I sell it or it goes right in our player housing locker. Because even though this is just a one-off, I can't help but collect items like that. Normally, if you go to Anchorage Memorial and clear out the Mirelurks before taking Moira Brown's quest, it counts as you going in there and sneaking and not taking out any of them, which is pretty convenient. But this time around, we used a stealth boy for such an occasion. That reminds me, I should go clear out the Mirelurks en route to Pinkerton because we're going to be doing that quest too. And using a stealth boy is a perfectly viable way to do it. Doesn't matter because Moira Brown gives you 3 of them once you clear this quest and get the best possible reward. Exploring more of the wasteland, Amata finds herself in yet another vault with someone disconcertingly repeating the name Gary over and over again. Well, if you've ever wanted to see Amata take on the army of Garys, well, this is definitely the run for you. Just like the insane survivors, the Gary clones are pretty easy to take out, great for our level and for, you know, how limited we are in terms of how we can fight. But some of these Garys also carry 10mm, so that means they also have ammo, so we can kind of get back what we used here. More importantly, the Charisma bobblehead is located here, and while we don't have to hunt this down, I want it because there's a perk I want once we get a little higher leveled. And it's during our protagonist's little adventure through Vault 108 where I'm really appreciating the fact that I allow any variants of a weapon available to us. Again, like I mentioned at the start of the video, didn't expect it to come in this clutch, but being able to kill enemies silently with a silenced 10mm helps quite a bit. And again, if I was running Amata in FNV, which I eventually will do, I would just buy the weapon mod from the Gunrunners or whomever for our weathered 10mm pistol. In fact, in character, it's kind of fitting that she found the one pre-modded off of Mr. Burke because, I mean, she doesn't know how to mod firearms. Well, not yet, anyway. Vault 108, super easy as usual, and we're gonna go ahead and grab that Charisma bobblehead. Again, we need that for a perk a little bit later on. But after you grab it, don't forget to get the Line Congressional Style skill book on the table directly across the room. After grabbing that, excuse me while I take 20 minutes to find Rockopolis. Well, instantly for you guys, through the power of good old editing. Unarmed is a very interesting tagged skill choice for Amata, but hey, I don't mind it. The unarmed bobblehead's always fun to come and get. It's kind of frustrating to try to find this place, but it's always rewarding when you find it. Plus, we can tell Dashwood about Argyle now. Well, not now as in right this second, because here at good old GNR, we gotta fight our way through a super mutant behemoth in order for us to gain access to Galaxy News Radio's headquarters. Normally, we'd use the Fat Man to take out the behemoth real fast, but since we can't use it, we gotta go in with our 10mm pistol, and thankfully we have the Lion Sprite here backing us up. And by backing us up, I mean doing most of the work. Now we can sell that Fat Man, and we can get use out of that power armor by making a little trip on over to Caston at Fort Independence. Funny enough, I think it's perfectly in character for her to do that, because if you sabotage Vault 101, she naively approaches an Enclave battalion, so I think she would totally help the outcasts here. That comes with the benefit of not getting shot after the fact. After talking with Sarah and unlocking the gate, that's exactly what we're gonna go do. Upon coming back, we can enter good old GNR where we meet up with 3Dog, who has information on James, and although she's not really a fan of being tugged around like this, it's a lot better than what Colin Mori already wanted her to do. At least the good fight is something Amata can get behind. And now, because our arsenal's so limited, we're not gonna cut straight to the Museum of Tech. We gotta be resourceful with how we get to the Museum of Tech, and thankfully we've got plenty of stealth ways we can use one of them to bypass this encounter here, with several raiders and I believe 2 turrets. When we're using 2 10mm, aka 2 weapons that share the same ammunition, we want to try and avoid whatever encounters we can, especially because there's not much yield from taking out the raiders. Yeah, we can get like the Badlands armor and all that good stuff, but it's a ton of ammo, a ton of healing to go through, so sometimes it's just better to play it smarter and go the Metal Gear Amata route. That's Metal Gear Amata, tactical Vault Dweller espionage action. Couple the stealth way with allowing the ghouls and the raiders to fight each other. All they gotta do is pick off the winner here. And I love right after we take out that feral ghoul that our stealth boy drops. I couldn't have planned that better if I tried. So once we get to the Museum of Tech, we're gonna fast travel, go get some ammo, and then come back. And as we battle the super mutants here, let me tell you how I go about getting ammunition in this run. Because again, we go through it quite fast. We have 2 weapons that use the same ammo. They're basically the same weapon, just one's quiet and a little bit weaker. But it takes 3 days for a merchant's inventory to restock in this game. I believe it's 3 days. That's what I was waiting. So I would go to our player housing in Megaton, sleep for 3 days, go to Moira Brown, buy some 10mm, go to Tenpenny Tower, buy it off of Chief Gustavo, and Lydia Montenegro. She sells 10mm once in a while, although a sparse amount of it. And then we pivot on over to Rivet City and buy from Flack and Shrapnel, and Lucky if he happens to be outside. It keeps us at a decent ammo capacity at all times, though the amount they have on hand is always random. That downtime does give our protagonist plenty of time to process what's been going on and come to terms with the things that have happened recently in her life. What keeps her going is trying to find James so she can figure out what the heck he was up to when he just decided to up and leave like that. Much like the Lone Wanderer in the main timeline, she wants answers, and she certainly deserves them after everything that's happened. But as far as the Museum of Tech goes, the only fight that took us a little while was the Super Mutant Master we're about to take on. I thought we'd fight more brutes because we're at a level where they should be spawning on the regular, but I didn't encounter a single one here. Still, the fact that we can spawn Super Mutant Masters means that we're gonna have to be very careful when we go to any place that has a presence of Super Mutants there. Thankfully, we have this nice, wonderful little pillar to take cover behind as he's unloading Chinese AR rounds on us. They're pretty tough in a head-on fight, but thankfully between taking cover, popping some chems, having a good bit of healing on us, and of course good old VATS mode, we're able to take out the Super Mutant Master with about 2/3 of our health remaining after healing up. So we can go ahead and grab that radar dish that 3Dog wants us to install. All I gotta do now is head on south to the Washington Monument, go ahead and install that bad boy once we take the elevator on up there, and after we grab the 10 milli ammo up here, we'll head on back to 3Dog. We go from 3Dog to Dr. Lee, grab the intelligence bobblehead, and now we're here at Jefferson Memorial. Making our way to the rotunda was pretty easy. All we had to do was fight a centaur, and a couple of standard super mutants took one down right here. But waiting for us inside of the chamber, which I'm sure will come into play a little bit later in the run, is a super mutant brute. We make a pretty clutch shot and end up disarming the brute of his sledgehammer, and he staggers around for a bit. That proves to be the Green Giant's downfall. Still, that guy took a lot of rounds to put down, and we still have the basement to go through, so what do you say we cut straight to it? Upon disposing of the super mutant inside the area where Amata's friend/lover was born, we'll make our way on down to the basement, and we end up fighting another centaur down there. Sometimes, I don't know what level you gotta be to get those things to spawn, because sometimes they're here, sometimes they're not. They've been here at lower levels, too. Not that I'm complaining, mind you. The centaurs are incredibly easy to kill, and I'm probably in the minority here. I never found them scary. And we end up aggroing all the super mutants down here, which makes for a pretty exciting gunfight. We're going to focus fire on one at a time here, and that's why I'm aiming for the super mutant in the back. As we take him down, we're going to go ahead and backpedal on way to the corridor, go up the stairs so that we have a bit of room. I gotta focus fire that brute as there's another super mutant approaching us, this one with a trusty old melee weapon. And fortunately for us, it's only a nail board, a pretty weak weapon, so the brute goes down and this guy goes down, getting only one hit in on us as he goes down. Next up, we're going to head on over to good old Smith Casey's garage, and we have the good old, usual, obligatory mention of Tranquility Lane here. Amata, being a very good karma character, obviously is going to go the good route here, although the good route is still pretty darn grim. I always really liked this quest because the good route is pretty grim, and the evil route does keep the people of Vault 112 alive, but they're only alive to be tortured at the hands of Dr. Stanislaus Braun. It's kind of funny, this is the third vault that Amata's been to during this run. I doubt we'll go through Vault 92, but I feel like I'm obligated to at least get it on our map at this point, right? Anyway, after learning about Tranquility Lane and the fate that befell the residents of Vault 112, Amata feels a lot more confident in her decision. Her father's words about leaders having to make hard choices resonates within her mind. I mean, obviously she's not the leader of this place, but the context being that making decisions in the name of the greater good is not so simple. After dropping off James at Rivet City and wanting nothing to do with him, she goes to Big Town knowing that this was a settlement in need of help. Boy, Preston would be real proud of her. She'd make a pretty good Minuteman, I have to say. And battling this Super Mutant Master really doesn't start off so well. Good old VATS mode being a little too accurate. I should have slowed down a bit, repositioned myself, and then taken aim from a more accurate spot, but whatever. We still defeated the Super Mutant Master at the end of the day. We'll go dispose of the rad roaches here, open up this cell containing Red, and although she's free for the moment, we're gonna go get Shorty. That way we can rescue both captives and take them back to Big Town. As we make our way on down, there are a couple of rad roaches before the super mutant that's guarding Shorty, and what I found kind of interesting as we make our way there is that although the guy we're about to attack is named Super Mutant, if you look at the model, it's very clearly a Super Mutant Master. I wonder why the name didn't change. Yeah, bro's got the black leather cross there, you can see it. And I want to make sure that we get his full attention because I don't want that dude shooting up Shorty, you know, the whole reason why we came down here. Also, there's a Nuka-Cola Quantum you can get down here as well. I'm gonna take out the Rad Roach as well because, again, don't want anything attacking Shorty. And yeah, judging by that health, definitely a Super Mutant Master. Probably an oversight there. Once the threats are dispatched of, we can go ahead and loot the room, and then we can talk to Shorty, let him know why we're here, let him know Red's okay, all that good stuff. I gotta say, too, when you give him a weapon, he's got my favorite dialogue. You're like, hey, Shorty, you can use the weapon. He's like, hell yeah, lay it on me, man. I kind of wish he could have been a companion of the Lone Wanderer. If there's anyone from Big Town that fits the role, I'd say Shorty for sure. Upon returning Red and Shorty to Big Town, she trains them in the art of small guns so they can defend themselves, and of course is going to help them fend off the incoming Super Mutant attack. I have to say, this Master's choice in tactics is very interesting. You've got this Vault Girl shooting him in the face with a 10mm, but he's shooting behind her, or he was, he's dead now. No time to rest, though, as there are a pair of standard super mutants approaching the settlement of Big Town. These guys are much, much easier to put down. After going through Brutes and Masters, these guys are a very welcome sight. Once we dispatch the threat and Big Town is declared safe for the time being, we're going to go ahead and report to Red, and we did help out Time Bomb. Our medicine skill was at 40, coincidentally, as we first arrived here, so we were able to save him too. That means that Red will always heal us for free going forward. So I think Amata's going to be making several frequent pit stops here to Big Town, especially since the merchant caravans from Canterbury like to come this way too. Next up, we're going to cut all the way to the Republic of Dave. And you remember why I wanted to get the Charisma bobblehead, to get our Charisma to 6? Well, I took Animal Friend, and boy, that shaved off all of the Yalgwai encounters up this way. Speaking of bobbleheads, love getting that Perception one. And you know what I really like about this place is that the only way to get Dave not elected, or for him to lose the election, is to tamper with the election ballot. I thought that was pretty funny. I definitely see Amata wanting to get Rosie as the new president. I don't imagine Amata would like Dave very much, and of course Rosie's very thankful for our assistance. But what I found really funny is that after we get Old Painless, we can't use that, just getting it, is that we talk to Jessica here, we let her know about the new president, Dave's gone, and then she says, stay away from Dave, he's mine. Hey, honey, you might want to go to Old Only, that's where he's going. I'm sure that will go swimmingly for the two of you. Yeah, we're not going there. Amata decides to swing on back to Jefferson Memorial to touch up with James and just kind of talk things through. Good thing she did too, because, well, the Enclave are here, and little does Amata realize the mess that she's gotten herself into. And now, considering that we're wearing a Vault jumpsuit and wielding a standard 10mm, the Enclave goons here could be a pretty difficult. One-on-one, though, still not too bad. Thankfully, we have the power of hotkeyed healing on our side. And we can give that Enclave armor to protect our castants, so we're going to be absolutely stacked in Stimpaks here before long. And as we battle the second Enclave goon here, well, I'm going to take back what I said somewhat, because again, fighting them one-on-one isn't so bad. In groups, I could see this going very, very wrong. Has me a bit concerned about Raven Rock, but that's a problem for future Raws. As for the present, well, remember how I talked about getting an upgrade later on in this run, and it's not what you thought it was going to be? Well, I didn't think it was going to be like this either, but first things first, as you enter the Rotunda, you can pickpocket Colonel Autumn through some real fun camera clipping. Odds are he'll catch you. He catches us. Our sneak's not very good right now. But if he does, he ends up shooting the scientist a lot faster, really speeding things along here. But yeah, we got Colonel Autumn's pistol as an upgrade. Not only that, but Dad's Wasteland outfit. That is a Vault 101 jumpsuit. That does count. As awesome as that was, while we begin our assault on Paradise Falls, let's go over Amata's state of mind in lieu of the Enclave seizing J-Mem. Amata does what we as the Lone Wanderer would do in a typical playthrough, by helping with the fuses and all that basic maintenance stuff. James doesn't talk much about how he feels, and I can see Amata misreading this as James being obsessed with Project Purity, which he totally is. But the reason why James doesn't talk much about his actions leading to his son's death is because James wants to distract himself from that pain of loss. I imagine that Amata would have gone off on him, not too dissimilar from how angry she gets if the player, as the Lone Wanderer, chooses to sabotage Vault 101, expressing a desire that she should have killed him when she had the chance. And to be fair to Amata, you really can't blame her for that reaction since, well, sabotaging Vault 101 leads to the destruction of her home and spells doom for everyone there, except for Butch, whom we find as a companion in Rivet City. That's about as angry as I imagine her being when she goes back to Jefferson Memorial. Yeah, she ain't getting over that. Amata still fully blames James for everything, who simply takes it. As for the Overseer, well, she knows that what he does is bad, and she still tries to defend him because that's her father, something she does in the main timeline. And as she gets ready for the absolute most brutal, difficult battle of her entire life, I imagine she's wrestling with those emotions quite a bit all the same. If nothing else, Paradise Falls is a perfect place for her to vent her frustrations, as if she doesn't have more than enough reason to take this place out anyway. She does still love her father, she keeps telling herself, but time away from him and meeting all the people in the Capital Wasteland she's helped or interacted with in some way has started to make her realize that her father really isn't a great guy. He didn't have to do what he did to her best friend, to her partner. He had nothing to do with James's decision to skip town. How was killing an innocent 19-year-old man for the good of the Vault? Now, of course, Amata didn't hear her father directly justify it that way, but she would know because, well, she is his daughter. She knows him better than anyone else at 101. She is very familiar with how he tries to twist things for the good of the Vault, for the good of the people. Speaking of Amata and Vault 101, in the main timeline when we have the option to side with the Rebels or with the Overseer, Amata does express interest in wanting to open the Vault to the outside world, to trade with other settlements. And that's the mentality I've been taking into account when helping places like Megaton, Big Town, and the like. Currently, we're also in the middle of trying to reach a peaceful solution between Tenpenny Tower's residents and the Ghouls of Warrington, led by Roy Phillips. And we'll also need to resolve the situation at Canterbury, as we've donated quite a bit of caps into Lucky Harith's caravan in particular. Boy, has that been helping out this run. And little does our heroine realize that all the good she's been doing out here in the Capital Wasteland, no doubt making her deceased loved ones, Lone Wanderer and her mother, proud. Well, little does she realize that people are beginning to take notice, most notably Three Dog when he comments about it over the radio. And another big revelation for her to come to terms with is the big lie that's been told in Vault 101. How James and his son were actually from Rivet City, how Vault 101 was not sealed off for 200 years. While Amata believes, rightfully so, that she'll never be able to return home, there's still so much she has on her mind, so much she has to ask her father. Why the lies? Why the disdain for the people residing outside in the Capital Wasteland? Some of his actions and behavior make sense to her now, not actions or behavior she agrees with, but the barely restrained loathing for James and his son, and how they're from the outside, and how the Overseer only let James in because of his medical skills, that's a lot to take in once she realizes all of that. And for her, she believes it's a shame too, because she knows that Vault 101, more than ever, needs to open up to the outside. However, she knows that if anything, her father's decision resulted in the complete opposite happening. No way would he ever open that door. But little does she realize that during the many supply runs that the Overseer has been a part of, recently he and others have kept an eye out for Amata, though Alphonse, that's the Overseer's name, ultimately does give up because he believes there's no way she could truly survive in a world as hostile and dangerous as the Capital Wasteland. Or has he truly given up? Time will tell. If you're curious, that information about the supply runs and the like are located in the Overseer's terminal. Since we've killed Pronto before Eulogy, saving him for last as always, gonna go ahead and cut straight to when we enter Eulogy's pad here because there's a lot of repairing, a lot of looting, and we're about to do the same to Mr. Jones here. I tell you what, man, Colonel Autumn's 10mm pistol is quite the upgrade for us. It really feels that way. With him disposed of, we can go ahead and free the captives, and might as well grab the speech bobblehead while we're here. Certainly can't hurt to have +10 to our speech check, am I right? That was a pretty darn good time. Before we tackle Vault 87, we're going to swing on back to the National Guard Depot for the last of our required bobbleheads, the small guns. I put this off for a while for good reason. You see, with science as one of our tagged skills, as well as a fair bit of investment in it as we've been leveling up, we were able to grab the Robotics Expert perk at level 12. Robotics Expert is a perk that boosts all damage dealt to robots by 25%, and while that's awesome, it comes with a very cool and useful secondary effect. If you remain undetected, as in you're out of combat while sneaking, you can hit the action button when you're up close to any robot and you'll have an option to disable it. You get a little bit of experience points for it, but what's really cool about it is that you can also destroy the robot right after and gain XP as if you had battled it. Basically, it's a free kill. As this place is absolutely infested with robots and us only having access to 10mm, I felt it was imperative for us to get that perk. Now we can't go too ham with our stealth boys here. We'll need to save a couple for a little bit later in the run, but we can bypass the majority of the encounters here courtesy of this awesome little perk. Now, there's one enemy we're going to have to fight the old-fashioned way. That's the sentry bot who comes out once we turn on the electrical switch, and I can only describe what's about to happen as a high-quality Bethesda moment. See, we're taking pot shots at that sentry bot. We're all safe up here, right? And then all of a sudden, the thing just disappears, and apparently it can teleport because it came right behind us. That's fine. We have an absolute ocean of stim packs courtesy of all the stuff we've been given at Protector Caston, so whipping out Colonel Autumn's 10mm pistol. Still love that we got that, by the way. We're able to take out the sentry bot without much of a problem. All said and done, we'll go ahead, head on inside, go straight for that small guns bobblehead. I'm going to loot this entire place, and then we will be over at Vault 87. Well, actually, I want to show you something pretty cool that I did with Animal Friend. Give you a little bit of show, don't tell with that perk, you know what I'm saying? Because we're at a level where we see Yaguai on the norm, anytime we bump into an Enclave base and there's a Yaguai nearby, we just aggro the Enclave officers and let the Yaguai take care of them for us. I have to say, too, I think that this perk thematically suits Amata, being the good person that she is. Oh, and because I said we're not going to go into Vault 92, but that we get it on our map just for the sake of, discovering all the vaults at least, we're going to go ahead and speed our way on up, making sure we stay well away from Old Only, because hey, that's President Dave's new territory. We don't want to come across as an invader. Once we have it discovered, we'll fast travel back over to Fort Independence, cash in on a serious boost in our stim packs, and then make our way on over to Vault 87 after doing what we gotta do in Little Lamplight, and of course we're skipping Murder Pass. The first order of business is to deal with some pesky rad roaches, and something pretty funny happens here. We kill the first 3 without much of a hitch, but with the way that the final one is positioned, right behind that skeleton, despite the fact we're aiming right at it, the bullets are, I think, hitting the skeleton because of good old collision. Not a problem, though. We can go into VATS mode, deal with that little thing. But apparently a super mutant heard our silencer. With all 3 super mutants after us, we'll go ahead and chem up and take them on. It's a pair of brutes and 1 basic super mutant, so we're going to take out the 2 brutes first, being that they're a lot stronger. Focus fire them just like we did back at Jefferson Memorial. With the 2 brutes down, the basic super mutant goes down real easy. As we make our way through Vault 87, here's our reason for Amata going to the National Guard Depot. Since she's invested heavily in the Canterbury Commons caravans, especially Lucky due to him being the weapons dealer, she got an idea in her head to clear the place out so that the Canterbury Commons caravan bros can loot the place and distribute what's inside as they see fit, boosting the economy of the caravan and Canterbury Commons. Couple that with the fact that we cleaned out Vault 108 and Lucky and the other caravanners have a place where they can take shelter, a sort of midway point for them. Sure, 108 is hardly what you call a relaxing place to rest, but it is shelter from the outside, and who knows, maybe they'll find some supplies we missed, we totally did, inside of 108 as well. Speaking of the vaults, I imagine that our protagonist has been quite shaken in her experiences with the other ones. 101 really was a safety net, but since she's learned about the experiments of Vault Tech, she can't help but wonder if the society she grew up in was the result of Vault Tech treachery as well. Vault 87 being the base of operations for the super mutants is also what gave me the idea to have Vault 108 be a base of operations of sorts for the Canterbury Commons caravanners as well, especially since it's cleared of all hostiles. And a little bit of a touch-up on her thoughts regarding James since everything happened, and of course, after dealing with Paradise Falls and the like. I think that Amata, while she wouldn't forgive James for his rash actions leading to not only the chaos unleashed upon Vault 101, but the life of her best friend and beloved, while the Overseer is the one who gave the order, effectively pulling the trigger, it wouldn't have happened without James doing what he did. She wouldn't be out here, and that in and of itself is something she has since come to terms with, but I just don't see her ever forgiving him for aforementioned reasons. That said, I don't think she would take joy or pleasure in the fact that James had to give his life so that she, Dr. Lee, and the other scientists could escape. That was noble of him, but Amata would have preferred it if James survived so that he could not only live with what he had done, but she actually does believe in the cause of Project Purity and, despite her feelings towards him, would have liked to see him live so that he could have seen the fruits of his labor. Of course, they still have to take back Jefferson Memorial from the Enclave, but were James alive, he'd at least be able to offer his assistance, which he would most certainly offer. Ah yes, and that locked ammo box, all for 2 missiles, but we got 50 experience points out of it, so that's going to help us level up. Now, we're going to be coming up to Fawkes here before long. We got to kill a couple of centaurs, a couple of super mutant brutes. Nothing too bad for us right now, although we always want to try and play nice and carefully, very cautious. I think it goes without saying that the super mutants, right down to the basic ones, typically outgun us and are bulkier than we are. Now, when it comes to Fawkes, I think that Amata would find him to be something of a curiosity, being that he's able to, communicate in things that don't involve direct, overt violence. And gotta say, too, I'm very glad that we invested heavily in lockpick. I wanted to have 100 before we came here because there was a very hard lock we could have picked and completely bypassed the encounter with the Super Mutant Masters when I had to jump on the rail, and I was worried, man, when that happened. I thought I was gonna get spotted for sure. But anyway, it's good that we did because we were able to open that hard-locked ammo box, which brings us to our level 14, where we can finally go and take silent running. Yeah, we hunted down the agility bobblehead for that. I have to say, too, I'm very used to the New Vegas version. Fallout 3 silent running giving you an extra +10 to sneak is very awesome, I have to say. But yeah, returning to our earlier point, Amata with Fawkes, yeah, I definitely think that she would free him, especially because he tells her about the GECK and offers to help. Naturally, she's a little cautious because it's a super mutant, but she just has a good feeling about him. All we have to do to free him is activate the fire alarm just down the hallway. It is guarded by a pair of super mutant brutes. Not that tough for us at this point in the game. And really, that's just due to the fact that we have an absolute boatload of stim packs. Yeah, I like an AU where Amata helps out the Brotherhood outcast instead of approaching the Enclave for help. Anyway, once she activates it, she thinks to talk to the human outside, the one she saw captive, but, well, she knows what a hostile person looks like at this point. Thankfully, he's distracted battling some centaurs. We'll help good old Sid put down the centaurs, and once that's all said and done, go into VATS mode as he turns to face us with his lead pipe, probably wishing he had a 10mm pistol, but at least the super mutants were smart enough not to give their prisoner a firearm. One centaur did make its way further down the hall, but, well, it's gotta run into Fawkes, so it's dying really fast. And because we have Fawkes at our side, we're gonna send him to go retrieve their GECK once we get there, and he can help us clear out the super mutant masters and super mutant brutes along the way. That's pretty great because our dad's wasteland outfit has already been destroyed. Great, we get to go through a Raven Rock in nothing but our undergarments. Should be fun. Actually, it's not going to be that bad. As President Eden summons us and Colonel Autumn attempts to rescind that order, we have another handy-dandy stealth boy to bypass some of the encounters here. And while we make our way to the good president, I figure we'll go ahead and pivot on over to the Colonel's room, where we can get some awesome stuff, including, but certainly not limited to, the awesome energy weapons bobblehead. It's pointless for us, but it's the only time of the game you can get it, so we're gonna grab it. There's a little first aid box carefully hidden on one of the lockers here. And speaking of lockers, with our lockpick skill being pretty much maxed out now, we can break into Colonel Autumn's personal footlocker with an average lock and obtain some ammo, as well as some buff out men's hats, as well as that Zack self-destruct holotape. If you've been with the channel for a while, you know that I like to keep this part in because people who are new to the channel might not know about this. I like to leave it in too because, I mean, it's cool to show off stuff you don't know about. Maybe you learn a little something here. And I find it to be an organic, rather awesome solution to an otherwise maligned set of dialogue regarding, you know, the dreaded speech check coming up. And yeah, we're moving a little bit slower despite the fact I sped up the footage in editing because we're over-encumbered at the moment. And we'll deal with that once we deal with President Eden. Now, once she makes contact with the president and he proposes his offer to her, Amata straight up refuses. No way she would go through with something like that. And to turn the tables on the president, she reads out the self-destruct code. Actually, as she makes her way up to Eden's terminal and learns that Eden is in fact a Zack's computer. What Eden is saying about the wasteland is not that different from her own father's line of thinking, although Eden is wording it in a far more eloquent manner. All the more reason for her to read off that self-destruct code to ensure that Eden's plan never comes to fruition. And from here, it's just a matter of getting out of Raven Rock. I typically like to take these guys out as we're escaping, but this time around we have plenty of supplies, so no reason, just gonna rush right by them. And despite the fact that we set Eden to self-destruct, his sentry bots and turrets are still helping us out, so that's quite nice of him. He must think we'll have a change of heart. And Fawkes here helping out Amata with escaping seals the deal that they're gonna be good friends. Before heading back to the Citadel, gonna check in on our friends at Tenpenny Tower, see how Roy Phillips and the crew are getting along with the residents. Having nobody outside is a little peculiar, hopefully everyone's alright. We hear a bit of commotion coming from Ling's shop, and turns out that it's Bessie Lynn from back at Warrington. She's quite happy to see our protagonist. And she doesn't seem to know where the other residents are, as Roy told her not to worry about it. She mentions that Masters is over in the other shop, so that's where Amata goes. Maybe he'll know something about all of this. Masters is happy to see her, and when she asks about the other residents, well, Masters isn't exactly subtle about what Roy decided to do, so it's pretty likely that Michael Masters was in on this little scheme the entire time. Roy never intended to make peace with these residents. All Amata did was make his job easier, and I have to say, this is one of my absolute favorite quests in this game. The fact that you are punished for going the diplomatic route is awesome, and it's just... it really does leave that dilemma of what the best thing to do here would be. Side with Tenpenny, side with Roy, peacefully, and certainly not the raiding option is definitely the evil way to go. But perhaps the best thing to do is simply not get involved. Roy Phillips teaches the Lone Wanderer a valuable lesson through this quest, and the same is true for Roy teaching Amata this little lesson here in this timeline. She confronts Roy about it, who immediately threatens her and tells her to leave lest she wants to join the other residents, and yeah, I imagine Amata is a little upset by this betrayal. Roy Phillips is a real bastard of a person, but I think that he is an awesome addition to the Capital Wasteland. An opportunist seeking to take advantage of someone who is gullible enough to think that diplomacy will always work. And well, since we took out Roy Phillips, our protagonist is going to make her way back down. It turns out that Michael Masters is hostile to her, having filled her in on the plan, so maybe their plan was to dispose of her as well. Roy was open to the idea, so Michael Masters certainly would be too. And what I found interesting is that Bessie Lynn is still not hostile to us, so it really goes to show that she was completely clueless to anything that Roy had going on. With this being the ultimate fate of the Tenpenny residents in this timeline, who is truly responsible for what happened to the Tenpenny residents? Yes, Roy pulled the trigger, but this never would have happened had Amata not tried to... The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Who are you sounding like right now, Amata? The parallel is to James, by the way. And now, because this is the Amata run, of course we're going to come back and do Trouble in the Home Front. Difference here is that in this timeline, the frequency broadcast is sent by her father. Turns out he has not given up on his search of her, the one that she didn't know about, but we do. And before you think this is out of character, I don't think so, because Alphonse did open the door for a complete stranger, James, 19 years ago, so he's most definitely gonna want his daughter back in the safety of Vault 101. But his message was very vague. There's something ominous going on here. Considering Amata's experience with vaults, she is certainly preparing for the worst. Radroaches. She remembers when she was afraid of those things. Feels like a lifetime ago. As Amata attempts to enter, she's approached by Officer Armstrong, who is naturally surprised to see her. Gomez turned a blind eye to the lone wanderer attempting to escape, so it's likely that the Overseer found out about that and punished him accordingly. One other change in this timeline is that Officer Armstrong is talking about rebels, Amata being very interested in what this rebellion's all about. The rebellion she would be leading in other playthroughs and in the main timeline is actually being led by Butch Deloria this time around, so... she doesn't know how she feels about that, but she does like where Butch's mindset is, from what little she was able to find out, because Butch's little version of the rebellion is the same as Amata's, but with a bit more bravado. They're provoking security a lot more, certainly. But with no Amata there to hold back the Overseer, what's stopping him exactly? That would be the Overseer losing influence because, well, ever since Amata left Vault 101, turns out that many people actually blame her as well. She tried to help the Lone Wanderer escape, so she must have been on James's plan too, and the fact that she hasn't been here for a while to the residents of 101 is enough to convince them of that, despite the Overseer's many objections to the contrary. He's losing power and influence to Max, so instead of it being the rebels versus the Overseer, there's the Overseer supporters, there's Max supporters, and then there's the rebels, who have the highest number due to that split in the Overseer's forces, due to him, being seen as useless and incompetent in the eyes of what I'm gonna call the Mac fanatics. As she encounters Butch, it turns out that also apparently Mr. Broch, their teacher from back in the day, was also on the side of the rebels. Very interesting. Amata vows to put a stop to her father. However, there's no sign of Mac, which is a little concerning. Amata also discovers here, mostly through gossip, hearsay, and of course Butch telling her, that the Overseer and Mac's forces went at it, with the Overseer emerging victorious. But that victory came at the heaviest of costs. They need to find a new Overseer with gusto. Someone who's familiar with the older generation but sympathizes with the new. Amata does ask Butch why he hasn't tried to go for that position, and Butch, being the free spirit he is, would never take that. And she's kind of glad for it. But yeah, real quick, want to show you something that is super well hidden and super awesome here. By passing this average lock, we can get a schematics for the rocket launcher, 300 bottle caps, and a holotape called Home Sweet Home. That alone is worth the return to Vault 101, in preparation for our, confrontation with the Overseer, as it were. Amata is coming to the realization, based off of the, reception she got on her little coming back party, that she really isn't welcome here anymore. Her own father even calls her tainted, but not in the same disdain that he has for the Lone Wanderer in the main timeline. Calling her tainted, his voice is filled with sadness by it. Amata is able to convince her father to step down, that she's starting to think about who could possibly become the new Overseer, and Overseer Alphonse wanted his daughter to supersede her one day, but that can't happen now. She encourages her father, telling him that everything is going to be okay as Vault 101 is on its way to a bright new future. A future that Overseer Alphonse says that he himself will not lead them into, which only confirms that he's going to be stepping down. And while they head to the rebels to make peace, Amata and Alphonse are talking about who should succeed him, and who would succeed the current Overseer. I think the best choice in this scenario is actually Edwin Broch. Alphonse had him in prison for sympathizing with the rebels, so he clearly sees the value in their cause. He's old enough to be familiar with the older residents of 101, and is shown through aiding the rebels that he understands the next generation and the importance of opening Vault 101 to the rest of the world. On her way out, Amata does read a new terminal entry on her father's computer pertaining to the Enclave and how they attempted to make contact with 101. Well, good thing we disposed of that small battalion that was located not too far from 101 itself. But it turns out that Alphonse being leader, at least at the time, was good because another overseer might have opened that door and, well, those of us who have played Fallout 2 or watched a Let's Play or whatever are familiar with the Enclave trying that back out west, and didn't go so well for Vault 13. So, credit where credit's due to the Overseer for his twisted leadership. After officially stepping down, Alphonse and Amata go to free Broch, and Broch gives Amata a similar speech to what Amata gives the Lone Wanderer in the main timeline. It's a dang shame to see her go, but Amata would understand the necessity of this sacrifice, being that in the main timeline, she's the one who tells the Lone Wanderer about that and how important that is. Well, that was fun story time, so we're gonna check out the bobbleheads and all the cool loot that we've obtained throughout the course of the game. I absolutely love the fact that that little clipping trick inside of the rotunda at Jefferson Memorial actually paid off in a productive way for one of our characters. We got a good bit of Nuka-Cola Quantum this time around as we open the other locker. We have 19 there, but we have 2 on our person, so we'll go ahead and store those. We were so close to getting that Girder Shade quest done. Maybe next time. Once we go ahead and stash that nice ice-cold Nuka-Cola Quantum away, let's gaze our eyes upon the bobblehead stand and check out just how many we've gotten this run. Quite a few. That's another reason why Animal Friend is awesome. If you take that, the sneak bobblehead is completely free to obtain because the Algui will not attack you. It's a shame that this is going to be a one-off because we've done a lot in this playthrough. That's my trouble with Fallout 3 runs, is that there's so much I want to include, but, well, otherwise if I did that, it would be like a 3-hour video. Anyway, it's final battle time. We're skipping over Liberty Prime because Liberty Prime basically escorts us to Jefferson Memorial. We're chemmed up, we're gonna fire up a stealth boy. And I gotta say, things start off pretty great as an Enclave goon clips through the door and Sarah Lyons ends up frying him with a flamer. Yeah, we're definitely going Metal Gear Amata, tactical Vault Dweller espionage action against these guys. And with Fawkes and Sarah Lyons at our side, these guys really aren't that much of a challenge. It's why I don't ban companions in Fallout 3 runs, because you have Sarah Lyons with you anyway. But there are a couple of runs where I didn't use Fawkes. I know the X688 run being one of them. In fact, we did the worst thing we could possibly do to Fawkes in that run. Alright, with the Enclave goons all said and done, it's time for our showdown with the good Colonel, Colonel Augustus Autumn. And Amata does attempt to talk him down. I picked the harder speech check because I actually wanted it to fail, because I was like, if we pass it, that's cool, but I didn't figure we'd pass it. 59%, it's coin flip luck, basically. And I have to say, there is something extremely awesome and poetic about killing Colonel Autumn with the firearm we attained that we really should not have been able to. If something like a GRA challenge existed in this game, I have no doubt that killing Colonel Autumn with one of his own weapons would be one of them. And I gotta say, that was a super fun run. Definitely good that we invested big time in the Brotherhood Outcasts over at Fort Independence, because a lot of battles would have been way tougher without those stim packs. And even then, I don't think any battle besides the final one was easy. And of course, the other reason why I like to bring Fawkes here is because it results in the best outcome for a good karma character. Fawkes is the only good karma character who can enter the radiation chamber and is immune to radiation himself, so Amata is spared and Sarah Lyons is spared. But wait, what's this? Normally this is where I cut to our end cap and I start showing off the runs you guys can look forward to. Well, I have been asked about DLCs from time to time, and although we're not going to do it in this video, 2 weeks later, yeah, we're, later on, before we take Amata to the Mojave Wasteland, we're going to continue her tale here in the Capital Wasteland by going through Broken Steel. The same rules as this run, 10mm, any variant of it, which we already have all the variants of the 10mm, and any variant of the Vault 101 jumpsuit. We have the modified Vault jumpsuit. We got that as the, as our reward for clearing out trouble on the home front in the best way possible. I figured that not only was this a good run to kick off the new year with, but this was also the perfect run to introduce doing DLCs as separate runs later on this year and beyond. And I'm thinking it's time to pull our Legionary from our Tale of Two Wastelands Let's Play out of retirement. He's had plenty of R&R. I plan on tackling all the New Vegas DLCs as a Recruit Legionary at some point. And hey, since we hit level 16, might as well cash in on that. we'll go and spread those skill points appropriately, and I figure we're not using unarmed, but getting it to 50 just feels kind of awesome. I got a lot of Pugilism illustrated books throughout the course of this run, so might as well top it off there. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you had as much fun with this run as I did, and again, I was a little bit skeptical because, for me, I'm like, single weapon challenges, they're alright, but I kind of worry about it being a bit monotonous, maybe a bit repetitive. But with the house rule that I established for my runs, turns out that we were able to get a lot of mileage out of some 10mm. The idea of swapping to the silencer and the standard 10mm, which we later replaced with the good Colonel's 10mm, was something I hadn't even considered at the start of the run. Coming up on screen here in a sec are some runs you guys can look forward to, and we're going to be going back to the Mojave Wasteland as we go through Fallout New Vegas and all DLCs as a Midwest Paladin. Next Fallout 3 run is going to be Fallout 3 as a Talon Bro, and then Fallout 3 as Joe J-Boy. See ya there. Later.